Yesterday, the Pentagon announced that 3 U.S. troops had been killed and dozens injured after a drone loaded with explosives struck them at a base in Jordan near the Syrian border. Now, none of that can be confirmed. The details, anyway, the location of the attack, and there's some question about whether that's true, but there is no question that American troops were killed yesterday, and the reaction to that, mixed with sadness, was highly political, in fact, even strategic.
American politics now operate a lot like gang warfare, trapped in recurring cycles of blame, humiliation, and revenge, punctuated by acts of violence, which means it's predictable. These kinds of feuds, sometimes known as high conflicts, function like perpetual motion machines. They tend to enrage us, trap us, frustrate us, drain us of energy and other critical resources, and seem to never go away no matter what we do. Conflict expert Peter T. Coleman wrote in his book, The 5%, Finding Solutions to Seemingly Impossible Conflicts.
Well, it should be taken seriously. However, I should mention that President Biden and the administration generally make it very clear that they have no intention to actually launch any kind of attack on Iran itself. So I think that the Iranian message is kind of like trying to throw back American intention maybe to hit Iranian assets in different parts of the Middle East, but not in Iran itself. I'm not so sure to say that there wasn't any kind of like cyber attack involved. I do not know the ins and outs of the whole story, but as of now, this is at least the formal version that was reported regarding the circumstances of that attack. So it may be very possible that that was the case.
But every so often, there's a shock to that conflict system, something that causes the machine to tilt. And in that moment, Coleman explains, there is a huge opportunity. Tucker Carlson's firing by Fox News was just such a shock, to him personally and to his colleagues. People he thought he could depend on have turned their backs on him. Last month, Fox News sent people to Carlson's house to dismantle his home TV studio. Strange actions. People don't understand what they are doing and the consequences of these actions.
Yeah, this has been an administration of hesitation and half measures. It's been about weakness, which has provoked Iran and their proxies. It's cost American lives now. We've had over 160, maybe up to 200 different attacks through the proxies. And again, we've lost American lives through his hesitation and half measures and his weakness. If you go back to what Trump did in 2020, he was strong when a single contractor was killed. He went after Soleimani, made him a martyr. We need to do more of that. We need to be clear. We need to be strong. That's deterrence.
National Security Council spokesman John Kirby told reporters that the response will likely come in phases. He says it's very possible that when you'll see it's going to be a tiered approach, not just a single action, but potentially multiple actions over a period of time. Yet John Kirby knows that when he says things like that, he's not just talking to the American people. He's also speaking to Iran, who's listening very closely to what he and the president says.
Neither does the government realize that their actions have very dire consequences. And what can this lead to, you may ask? War, I answer. Karine Jean-Pierre sounds worse than Biden, struggles to pronounce her words as she tries offering condolences to 3 troops killed in Jordan.
I want to point out that we had a tough day last night in the Middle East. We lost 3 brave souls in an attack on one of our bases.
Yes.
And, I'd ask you for a moment of silence for all 3 of those fallen soldiers.
Jeez.
And we shall respond.
Is she on drugs? What I will say, our deepest, obviously our deepest condolences go out, and our heartfelt condolences go out to the families who lost three brave of 3 folks who are military folks, who are brave, who are always fighting, who are fighting on behalf and of this administration of the American people. Obviously more so, said Tucker.
We are mourning with Americans across the country today who are mourning the deaths of 3 souls, 3 service members who lost their lives, as we all know, yesterday. Yesterday was a very dark day. Today is a very difficult day for Americans, so our deepest condolences go out to the families, the friends, and the units, obviously, who lost 3 friends, 3 colleagues. So let me just say that first. Look, the president, you heard from the president yesterday. I know you've been showing the clip of what the president said in South Carolina. he said, we shall respond. I'm going to let the president, I'm not going to infringe on the president's decision here. The president has always been very clear as commander-in-chief. One of the things that he focuses on, obviously, is making sure that we protect our troops.
Former President Trump on Sunday argued President Biden's weakness and surrender is to blame for the deadly drone attack in Jordan that killed 3 U.S. service members. Trump, in a post on Truth Social, weighed in on what he called the brazen drone attack in Jordan on Saturday that killed 3 U.S. troops and wounded at least 24 others.
You've seen a lot of him at the beach. We all have consultants. The thing is, I don't listen to mine enough. I should listen. But we've been right about almost everything. Did you ever see the hat? Trump is right about everything. I hope I'm not right about World War III, because you're very close to World War III. I'm not predicting it, but I'm saying you're very close. We have a man negotiating for us who can't put 2 sentences together. He can't see the stage. He can't find the stairs to get off the stage. And I'm not going to imitate him, because every time I imitate him, they say he couldn't find his way. It's true. It's true. True, Robert. It's true. 2 weeks ago, I did one of the greatest imitations. I imitated him. You know, he finishes the speech. His speeches last for about 3 minutes because, you know, his gasoline sort of runs out a little bit. It's a little bit like an electric car, isn't it? You know, it doesn't go far. Doesn't go far. Got a couple of problems. Doesn't go far. No, but he finished his speech, and I did this great imitation. You know, the way he always points, like, huh. And then he walks in a different direction. But I did it. He goes like, huh.
The drone attack on a U.S. military installation in Jordan, killing 3 American service members and wounding many more, marks a horrible day for America. My most profound sympathies go to the families of the brave service members we have lost, Trump wrote. I ask all Americans to join me in praying for those who have been wounded. This brazen attack on the United States is yet another horrific and tragic consequence of Joe Biden's weakness and surrender, he continued. Trump's attack on Biden came just hours after the president announced the strike, which marked the first time U.S. service members have been killed by enemy combatants in the Middle East since the onset of Israel's war with militant Palestinian group Hamas.
And now we're going to start with the latest from the Middle East. 3 service members killed in a drone strike on a U.S. base in Jordan. And that was Sunday. Good morning, Lauren. The latest, please.
Dozens more injured. They had to be medevaced out. The drone hit a logistics hub in northeast Jordan, as you can see there, right where it borders both Iraq and Syria. It houses 350 U.S. service members. The drone reportedly hit where they were sleeping. U.S. officials say they're confident Iranian proxies are responsible, and President Biden says, yeah, we'll respond. Military commanders likely crafting the strike hit list for the president to review, but former President Trump says we've been on a collision course with Iran. He says, quote, I ask all Americans to join me in praying for those who have been wounded. This brazen attack on the United States is yet another horrific and tragic consequence of Joe Biden's weakness and surrender. Well, this is the first time Americans have been killed since October 7th in Gaza. There have been 160 attacks on them in Iraq and Syria.
All right, Lauren, thank you very much.
Biden on Sunday said the strike was carried out by radical Iran-backed militant groups. The Pentagon called the strike a one-way suicide drone attack on a patrol base near the Syrian and Iraqi border in northeastern Jordan. At least 25 soldiers were injured in the strike.
So when you see all of this, and you hate to be cynical, but you really can't be too cynical when you're dealing with the war party in Washington. It did seem like a coordinated response very quickly, moments after the announcement of the tragic death of these American servicemen. What do you make of the response from both parties in Washington to the deaths yesterday?
I mean, this whole thing, we've seen it coming, Tucker. We left our troops in these vulnerable locations, like on the Jordanian, Syrian, and Iraqi border. Our troops have been attacked, we think, at least 150 times since the October 7th incident began. And so we've seen this coming. This was an inevitable conclusion. So by leaving our troops in these locations, undefended essentially, we left them there as bait because so many people in Washington, D.C. want to go to war with Iran. They want to go to a war with Iran so badly that we will prop up the government of Iraq while the government of Iraq is completely controlled by Iran. We spend billions of dollars every single year funding, arming, training, and equipping the Iraqi government so they can turn around and support the exact same militias that just killed our troops. Biden said it himself in his statement. He accused Iranian-backed militants operating in Iraq and Syria of conducting this attack that killed the 3 Americans and wounded nearly 30 more.
In a separate statement released Sunday by the Trump campaign, the former president touted his handling of Iran when in the White House. 3 years ago, Iran was weak, broke, and totally under control. Thanks to my maximum pressure policy, the Iranian regime could barely scrape $2 together to fund their terrorist proxies, Trump wrote. Then Joe Biden came in and gave Iran billions of dollars, which the regime has used to spread bloodshed and carnage throughout the Middle East.
Crooked Joe Biden just agreed to pay a $6 billion ransom to the Iranian dictatorship in exchange for hostages. This is yet another Biden surrender and a further blistering humiliation of the United States of America to the world stage. But even worse, this decision will be extremely deadly. Biden is giving $6 billion to the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, just as when Obama sent the Iranian regime pallets of cash for hostages in the dark of night. Remember? Plane loads of cash. Biden's ransom payment will be immediately used to stoke violence, bloodshed, and mayhem throughout the Middle East and all around the world, costing countless innocent lives. It's also guaranteed that the fanatical Iranian regime will use this money to advance their nuclear weapons program, putting Israel, the United States, and the entire world in very grave peril. They are reportedly just weeks away from a nuclear bomb, something which would have never happened under the Trump administration. Tragically, Biden's ransom payments also make it dramatically more likely that even more Americans will be held captive in the future, because Biden has shown that he will pay gargantuan sums of money.
Attacks against U.S. troops in the Middle East still occurred at times under Trump's watch, including in 2020, when a rocket attack on an Iraqi airbase killed 2 Americans and a British national. The attack also wounded more than 11 people. In an NBC News report months later, then-Genscher Frank McKenzie revealed U.S. bases in Iraq continued to be targeted after the rocket attack. Trump has repeatedly accused Biden of being a weak leader and has claimed other world conflicts are connected to the world's weak perception of the president and the United States.
It's all coming in. I think the people understand it. I think that in many ways we're stronger now than ever before. They understand the deception and the horror that these people put this country through. It's really very sad, actually. Well, they did get Pulitzers, and it turned out to be they got Pulitzers for absolutely incorrect and opposite reporting. It was horrible reporting. And there are many people that should have gotten Pulitzers where they had it right, but they were not considered, and it's a disgrace. I think Pulitzer is another one that's been disgraced by this whole last 4.5-year period, 5-year period. But literally from the day of that wonderful ride down the escalator, from that moment on, investigation after investigation, and the people that were guilty, they just float right through. How it wasn't done, DOJ didn't do anything about it. I guess they felt they want to be soft. This group doesn't feel that way, but you know what? I let that up to DOJ. I let that up to the people running DOJ, and I wasn't involved. I would say that probably maybe less involved than I should have been, and maybe I should have been forcing it.
In the wake of Hamas's Oct 7 attack on southern Israel that sparked an ongoing war in Gaza, Trump at the time said the group's attacks were made possible because the U.S. is perceived as being weak and ineffective with a really weak leader. He repeated this point on Sunday, writing on Truth Social. This attack would never have happened if I was president, not even a chance. Just like the Iranian-backed Hamas attack on Israel would never have happened. The war in Ukraine would never have happened, and we would right now have peace throughout the world. Instead, we are on the brink of World War III. The former president later added the U.S. cannot survive with Biden as its commander-in-chief. The Saturday strikes are likely to further fuel concerns of an escalation of the conflict in the Middle East as Iran-backed militant groups continue to wage attacks on U.S. forces in the region.
Israel's at war, and the United States has to support Israel. We have to support Israel. There's been no better president for Israel than me. And nobody loves Israel more than the evangelical Christians, I will tell you that. This war happened for two reasons. The United States giving Iran $6 billion. How about that deal? We get 5 terrorists, they get 5 terrorists, or we get 5 prisoners, they get 5 prisoners. Call them whatever you want. 5 and 5, okay. I'm sure it wasn't a good deal. Because like in the case of Russia, one of the people they got back was the leading arms dealer in the history of the world. Okay? Leading arms dealer in the history of the world. He's going out now purchasing arms for Russia. Very good trade they made. I'm sure our trade was likewise. But they added one little caveat. Plus we get, for them, $6 billion. So we get 5, and they get 5. Sounds good. And they also get $6 billion. And our country's perceived weakness and an incompetent and corrupt leader, Joe Biden, who's left out all over the world. He's left out all over the world.
Biden last week ordered strikes on 3 Iraqi facilities used by Iranian-backed groups. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin last week, the U.S. does not seek to escalate conflict in the region, but it is fully prepared to take further measures to protect our people and our facilities. The Pentagon said on Monday it does not believe that Iran is seeking a war with the United States, and that Washington doesn't want a war either, a day after an Iran-backed group killed 3 U.S. soldiers and wounded dozens more in Jordan. Pentagon spokesperson Sabrina Singh blamed Iran for enabling groups attacking the United States and said the latest attack carried the footprints of Iran-backed Kataib Hezbollah. We don't seek war, but we will take action and respond to attacks on our forces, Singh said.
Look, I'm not going to get ahead of the president or any decisions that he's going to make. He is in consultation with his national security team. You saw him convene a meeting today. He convened one over the weekend, but I'm not going to get ahead of what's been presented to him or any decisions that him and the secretary are going to make together on this one.
What do you tell the American public that might be worried about a strike within Iran or worried about the potential for this to expand expand the war in the region and get us directly involved?
Well, what I would say is that this president and the secretary have no higher priority than protecting U.S. interests, protecting the American people, both at home here and abroad. And of course, with that, protecting U.S. forces. And so what I would say to those who have been following what's been going on in Iraq and Syria, in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, is that the U.S. military will always take action to respond and protect our forces, to protect our interests and our assets in the region and at home. And that's what you've seen with the president continuing to do, whether it be strikes, multilateral strikes with our partners in Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen, or strikes within Iraq and Syria. We will always hold those accountable.
Earlier Monday, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin sounded a strong warning. He vowed the United States would take all necessary actions to defend its troops after a drone attack by Iran-backed militants that killed 3 U.S. troops and wounded dozens more. The attack Sunday was the first deadly strike against U.S. forces since the Israel-Hamas war erupted in October and marks a major escalation in tensions that have engulfed the Middle East. The President and I will not tolerate attacks on U.S. forces, and we will take all necessary actions to defend the U.S. and our troops, Austin added at the start of meeting with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg.
We also see growing competition with China. Beijing is not an adversary, but China is conducting a major military build-up, increasingly aligning with Russia and bullying its neighbors, not least Taiwan. And all of this impacts our security. So when we face a more dangerous world, we need to invest more in security. I commend you for your leadership on these issues, and I welcome the fact that European allies are now stepping up. All allies across Europe and Canada have increased defense spending, added $450 billion extra US dollars for defense, demonstrating that they take this seriously. And I look forward to the defense ministerial meeting next week and also the summit in Washington in July, where we're going to celebrate the 75th anniversary of this alliance, but also work and agree on important decisions on how to continue to ensure that NATO is the most successful alliance in history. So thanks so much, Lloyd. It's great to see you again.
Well, welcome back to the Pentagon, Secretary General. So look forward to a great discussion. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Press, for leaving now. Thank you, Press, for leaving now. Thank you, Press. Thank you, Press, for leaving now. Thank you.
The United States is trying to determine exactly why the nearly 350 troops at the base in Jordan, known as Tower 22, were unable to stop the drone. Two officials said a U.S. drone was approaching the base around the same time the attack drone was incoming. One of the officials said the attack drone was also flying low, factors that may have contributed to it being missed by base defenses. U.S. troops have been attacked over 150 times in Iraq, Syria, Jordan, as well as on warships in the Red Sea, where Houthi fighters in Yemen have been firing drones and missiles at them. The attacks are piling political pressure on President Joe Biden to deal a blow directly against Iran, a move he's been reluctant to do out of fear of igniting a broader war. So what do you have to say about all this? Our president is out of his mind to allow such actions. Is war coming? Write your opinion in the comments and watch other shocking news on the channel.